Welcome to another truck hardware installation tutorial. Today, we're installing our new Gatorback Mudflaps on a 2025 Chevrolet Blazer EV. These flaps are a great way to protect and improve the overall look of your vehicle. As always, remember that this video is to be used as a companion to the included installation instructions. Before you start, make sure that all the hardware and custom design brackets included with your kit are present and ready for installation. With all that out of the way, let's get started on the front of the vehicle. To start, remove the factory screws circled here. Now take your flap and install the hole here to the factory hole here, using a sheet metal screw and the center hole of an offset washer. Place a spacer on the back of this hardware when securing it to the vehicle. Use another set of this hardware and a spacer to secure the next hole on the flap. With the top of the flap secured, hold the rest of the mud flap level to the body of the vehicle, and use a marker to create a mark on the fender lip through the hole seen here. Now remove the top hardware you just installed and pull the flap away to reveal the mark. Place some protective tape included with your kit over top of the marked area. Then position a spring nut over top of the mark. Now resecure the top hole of the flap to the vehicle using the same hardware as before. Secure the flap to the spring nut using a cap screw and flat washer. With a square or other leveling tool, make sure the mud flap is level. We also recommend you take a step back and visually gauge the mud flap to check that it is lined correctly. Once your flap is level, secure all fasteners. We suggest you tighten this hardware by hand and be careful not to over tighten any fasteners. Now let's secure the last hole of the flap. To start, go to the underside of the fender and remove the two screws holding the cladding in place seen here. This will allow us to access the back of the liner to secure the hardware we're about to install. Now go back to the wheel well, and using a 1/4 inch bit, drill a hole through the last hole of the flap and into the liner. For peace of mind, we want to highlight this hole is only being drilled into the liner of the vehicle. Now, secure the mud flap hole here using a sheet metal screw and flat washer. Secure this hardware to the back of the liner using a flat washer, a lock washer, and a hex nut. Once in place, reinstall the factory screws into the underside of the fender. And tighten all fasteners on the flap, making sure that everything stays level. Your front mud flaps are installed. Now let's move on to the rear. To start, remove the factory screws circled here. And remove one screw from the underside of the fender, seen here. Now take the driver's side bracket in your kit and secure it to the factory hole on the bottom of the fender using a sheet metal screw and flat washer. Now, secure the mud flap hole here to the factory hole seen here using a sheet metal screw and the center hole of an offset washer. Then attach the top hole of the mud flap to the vehicle using a sheet metal screw, a flat washer, a nylon washer, and a J-clamp. Position a spacer on the back of this hardware when securing it to the vehicle. Once it's all in place, make sure the J-clamp is positioned like seen here, so that it applies pressure across the top of the mud flap, holding it tight to the body of the vehicle. Finally, attach the mud flap to the bracket using a cap screw. Secure it from behind using a flat washer, a lock washer, and a hex nut. This hardware can be seen fully installed in the following clips. With the square other leveling tool, make sure the mud flap is level. We also recommend you take a step back and visually gauge the mud flap to check that it's aligned correctly. Once your flap is level, secure all fasteners. We suggest you tighten this hardware by hand and be careful not to over tighten any fasteners. Congratulations! Your Gatorback mud flaps are now installed. If you found this tutorial helpful, give us a like and subscribe. Check out the rest of our channel and socials to see what new products we're working on, and for further tips, tricks, and guides. Thanks for choosing Truck Hardware.